said, I'm Maureen Higdon, Secretary of the Board of Trustees, and welcome everyone. I think I see some new faces, some family members, and we do have some announcements, and they're not up, so I'll go by what I remember. Justice Committee. Yeah. Okay. Children's Religious Exploration is going to start at 10:30. As we all know, we'll sing our song. Adult Religious Exploration, my personal theology, will be in the Founders Room today at noon. And the Justice Team meeting will be out on the patio. And I think we're ready for the big announcement of the luau. Are we ready? Which will be next Sunday. Our biggest event coming up is our luau.
Also tell them there's a work party on August 2nd.
Okay. And while they're getting ready, please come and help out. There's a work party on August 2nd. Thank you.
One enchanted luncheon, you won't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a luau with barbecue pulled pork and chicken sliders and jackfruit with barbecue sauce, Hawaiian macaroni salad, and even coleslaw too. At our fundraising luncheon, you might have a Mai Tai or a blue Hawaiian, wine and beer or soft drinks too. So sign up with Murray and give your 15. Nope. Your $15 donation and $5 for the game and $5 more for alcoholic libation. Once you have eaten, while you enjoy dessert, we'll challenge you with Hawaiian trivia. No, it will not hurt. And there will be prizes. And it's your backpack. Oh, no, it's not the prizes. This is the backpack. Yeah. And there will be, turn it around. $2 custom photos. Okay. $2. Is there a $2 sign? No, there's not. Our fundraising luau luncheon on August 3rd. That's next week. August 3rd after service. We'll entertain and feed you until you nearly burst. You'll want to come back next month and bring all your friends. Just don't forget to get your lei before it ends. Old friends and new at this luncheon celebration, please come and help us fundraise. We gratefully accept all donations.
Catherine needs to put on the other hat here for a moment.
So, we could do the prelude. Jaryus, what do you think? We downloaded Lily's songs off her CDs. So it should come. And we could close our eyes and pretend she was here. How about that? Thank you, Lily. That's her composition. All of these are her own compositions. So it's available on all kinds, on Apple, on Spotify. It's all over the place. So our opening words are not the words that are in your order of service, because they're not, because we don't have one of those books here. So I picked one of the ones I have read a lot. It's 419 in our gray hymnal. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. And today, Yeah, I know. I got that. I got this. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. And so, oh yeah, I should have done that. This is so crazy, because it isn't. Here it is, though. Here we go. We said our opening words. Actually, we've done it like this before. This is for one ring for yesterday, for the past, remembering our ancestors, the people who lived on this land before we did, the Tongva people, and remembering our ancestors who formed this congregation, getting close to 80 years ago today. We ring it once for those of us here today. Ooh, so sorry, your ears. And we ring it for ourselves who are seated here, our friends, our guests, us, members of this congregation, all of us who work so hard to grow this beloved community and make it what it is. And we ring it once for the future. We ring it for what will come and for the people who will come to be with us. Okay, and we're delighted to have two beautiful people who signed up to light our chalice today, Echo and Brooklyn. And I had some really great opening chalice lighting words, and after they light it, I will try to remember them. I think, I don't see the one from kids. So, you know, but no, it doesn't. So guess what? I'm looking to see if I have one of those archaic things we used to have in here, which we have them.
We're good.
Did you get it? How weird. Thank you, Brooklyn. Okay, let's see if I can remember the chalice lighting words I wrote. So we light this chalice, symbol of our faith, with gratitude that we can enjoy any book we want to, not just one book, and that we can take our truth and meaning from wherever we find it. We light it in gratitude that we're in a place of worship where we can share our truths and meaning with one another. We light our chalice with a sense of determination to make sure we always have that right and that we don't lose it, and to work for a just world where all people have that right. That's sort of what I wrote. So, right now, let's rise as we are willing and able, or in body and spirit, and speak our covenant together. And then we're going to sing Spirit of Life, but the video has it in Spanish first. So it's backwards from how we usually do it. Okay. We affirm that love is the greatest purpose of this congregation. The search for truth is our constant star, and service is our prayer. We pledge our hearts, minds, and hands to challenge injustice with courage, to find hope with your planet, to live out our Unitarian Universalist values every day as beloved community. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all that is sacred in life. And
Corazón, cántale. Good morning, everybody. I am Robert Tidwell, the Director of Religious Education Exploration. Sorry, I still get it wrong. I'm going to read our wisdom tale today. It's called Nourishing Our Whole Selves, and it's by Aisha Ansano. It opens with a quote from Milton Brasher Cunningham's Keeping the Feast, Metaphors of the Meal. The difference between a good meal and a great meal is time. How long we linger at the table, whether it be a special occasion or a Sunday supper of leftovers. To break our schedule as we break bread is an opening for the Spirit. Aisha Ansano writes, it had been a long week and I was so tired. After being cooped up at work all day, my partner and I decided to take a walk to a local burger place to grab some tasty food that didn't require much work on our part. As we were getting ready to walk out the door, I realized that what I really wanted to do more than anything was to eat a burger and fries while I read my book. But that felt a little rude, given that I was headed to dinner with my partner, who I hadn't seen all day, and who I really enjoy spending time with. But I also did really want to read my book. So despite the fact that it went against all conventions of politeness, I told him that what I really want to do was go out to dinner with him and then completely ignore him, while I immersed myself in the novel I was reading. And because he totally gets me, he agreed, and we trapezed down to get burgers, book in hand. I could have, of course, come home to read my book after dinner, in the quiet of my own house on my comfy couch under a blanket, which might sound like the perfect reading environment. But ever since I was a kid, lingering over a meal with my book has felt like a luxurious experience. There is something magical about not having to leave the table as soon as I finish eating, about prolonging the experience of the meal and just doing something indulgent. Reading while I eat is a specific pleasure for me, differing from lingering at the table in conversation. The joy of reading nourishes my soul and my mind in a distinct way that feels particularly satisfying, and combining that with the physical nourishment of my body refreshes and rejuvenates my entire being. I can't tell you what I ate that night or what I read, but the feeling of sitting in that restaurant with a book has stuck around. And now the kids come forward. Actually, we don't have the cellos today, so if Jaryus can play the song, you guys can sing us to our classes. Thank you. Oh, we don't have the song. So.
It is there, but we can sing it. Our hearts go with you. Go enjoy our hopes so true. Learn in love and grow in wisdom. Shine your light in all you do. That was beautiful, and even on tune. And yes. See, we can do this. Okay, it's time now where we take our Sunday offering. We support our congregation with our offerings, and we also pick a community organization every month or so to support. And this is a very worthy one this month. We've had a presentation on it, the Immigrant Defenders Law Center. If they ever need money, they need it now. So we have a offertory that will play while we come forward and give us offerings. So. That's an amazing piece. She wrote it. It's called Soaring. So isn't it neat that we have it, even though she's not here? And of course, she blessed us doing this like that. Okay. Well, I have my script now, but I had already planned what I was going to say. So this has been a test for me. I'm such a silly. I have 2 joys that were put in the basket, and I don't know if there are any online or not. Are there, Jaryus? No. Okay, and we have just joys here. Ellen has a joy, Ellen Livingston. Okay, her grandchild, Rachel, is here with her partner, Olivia. So they're right there. And it's a happy, big, big happiness for Ellen. They're from Chicago? Chicago. How's the weather there? Hotter, right. I know. We're not having the kind of weather we're famous for. You just got back from Chicago. You were just there. Okay, and then we have another one that says, my mom and Mark are visiting this week from South Dakota. It's been a year since we have seen them, and I love that they are here. And guess what? You didn't write a name. And but it's Echo's mom and Mark. And hi and welcome. Okay, it's just this kind of day, you know, all the way around, but it's going to get different. And so we don't have anything that has been expressed here. We all know there's been a lot of sorrows going on. Luckily, there today, none right here. But let us just take a few moments to sit together in quiet meditation and contemplation of what has been expressed today and other things. So let's just take a few slow breaths together. Just take a brief breath in and out. And continue breathing slowly. And feel your shoulders relax. That's what I need to do. And my heart needs to open. And may all of our hearts just open as we exhale outward. We send compassion to everything we know wasn't expressed today that is concerning our hearts. And we celebrate the joys that have been expressed here. We send our love and compassion out beyond the walls of this building to the multitudes of beings in this world, both human and non-human, who are suffering and frightened and struggling. And we send our love and compassion inward to ourselves, gently honoring the courage with which we navigate our daily lives. Breathing in, stilling our hearts. Spirit of life and love, be with us in this time as people suffer, as parents grieve, as violence rages. Be with us who feel the pain of loss and who feel anger at injustice. Be with the oppressed, and may the heart of the oppressor change. For we know that both are joined in their humanity, no matter how often we forget it. Help us remember the hope we had, the hope we have, and the hope that we will have. Help us to remember joy in the midst of sadness, success in the midst of challenge, and good things in the midst of bad things. Help us to be better people, to work for better things, and to create a better world. Each day, as we rise and welcome our spirit, we are given that opportunity. So may it be. And we have a gentle song. It's For All That Is Our Life. And there's a video link. So this is a traditional service that we have every year. It's our book service, and we always try to have people from our book group come. So I asked Ellen Livingston to read something that inspires her. She's a member, a very important member of the book group. So welcome, Ellen Livingston.
Hi, everybody. I'm a little nervous. I haven't been in this pulpit for a while. And plus, I have my granddaughter here, and she's going to go back and tell people in Chicago about me. So it's an honor to be here. I want to start off by saying, when I meet St. Peter at the pearly gates, and she asks me, it's actually a woman at the pearly gates, what have you ever done in your life that it makes a difference? And I'd have to think for a while, and I'd say, well, I started a book group at the Unitarian Universalist congregation, which I think has made a lot of difference in people's lives. I had wanted to start one when I retired, and something in the daytime so that retired people could come and not have to drive at night. And I want to just say, this isn't part of my assignment, but I want to say, it's all right. So I set a time and a date, and about 8 people came, and I think it was on a Thursday or something, and they all seemed very enthusiastic, but they wanted it at a different time and a different date. So I just stepped back and let the leadership develop. And we have a leader, our current leader, facilitator, with us today. Chris, where are you? There she is, back there. Yeah, yay, Chris, yay. And we're probably the most democratic book group, maybe in the whole world. Why not? Because we have nominations for the book. We have a vote on the book. We do a fiction one month and a nonfiction the next month. And it seems to be working out because we have lasted all these years since, I think, 2006. And it's just one of the wonderful things. You're all invited to come. I hope you don't all come because then we'd have to have more than one book group. I also, yeah, we could do that. Maybe we could have a night one or on Zoom or something. I also wanted to say about this reading from Rabindranath Tagore. I want to dedicate it to Barbara Dev, who has passed on. She was one of our leaders and was often in the pulpit on this Sunday, and I still miss her. And also her spouse, Vasu Dev, who was an Indian American and very active in our church. So this is a reading by Rabindranath Tagore, who was a novelist, a poet, a philosopher, and I am told he even did lectures in Unitarian Church when he was around. And it's called The Stream of Life. And I think it's appropriate when we are talking about the different characters, different aspects of the books we read. But this is the more universal quality that reading brings out. It's called, as I said, The Stream of Life. The same stream of life that runs through my veins night and day, runs through the world and dances in rhythmic measures. It is the same life that shouts in joy through the dust of the earth, in numberless blades of grass, and breaks into, I'm having trouble with my glasses up here, into tumultuous, do we have a light? Okay, I don't need it. Tumultuous waves of leaves and flowers. It is the same life that is marked, in the ocean cradle of birth and death, in ebb and in flow. I feel my limbs are made glorious by the touch of this world of life. And oh wow. No wonder I'm having trouble. And my pride is from the life throb of ages, dancing in my blood this moment. Thank you. You can help me. Thank you.
And now I'd like to invite forward member Joe Belk, who will have talk to us, and then he will introduce our second speaker.
Hi. I also wanted to talk about the book group a little bit. I actually joined after a service just like this late in 2020, where our dear friend Dolores Burris made a presentation about the book the group was about to read, which was Isabel Wilkerson's Cast. So, so I called her the next day and asked how I could join, and I got to join in time to read and participate in back then it was 2020, so we're still meeting on Zoom, but after about a year or so, we started to meet here, and now it's the third Tuesday of the month from 10 to 11:30. So thank you to everybody for making that possible. I've met so many wonderful and insightful people through that and read about 50 books that I probably wouldn't have read otherwise. So my talk today is primarily about detective fiction, which I had kind of a, kind of slow path toward. through classic movies, I'd seen, The Big Sleep, a Chandler adaptation, Raymond Chandler adaptation, and Double Indemnity, on which he co-wrote the screenplay with Billy Wilder. So I started reading Chandler books maybe, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago, and really liked them. I mean, they're funny, and he'll go on like 100-page digressions, and then you're like, oh yeah, there's the plot again. And and then at some point I saw that he'd said about Dashiell Hammett that Hammett took murder out of the parlor room and back into the streets where it belonged. So I started reading Hammett, and the masterpiece, Red Harvest, I had several false starts with, but I ended up liking it better than any of the Chandlers. So I highly recommend. And back in San Antonio, we attended this literary nonprofit called Gemini Inc. And my band had played some of their fundraisers. We went to events and readings there, some writing workshops. But they started a film noir book group, or a noir book group. And the genesis, I believe, was the husband of the director and one of the board members were arguing about who was better, Raymond Chandler or Ross MacDonald, who did like the Harper series that Paul Newman starred in the 60s. So they started to read all these classic period books. And the first one we went to, it was In a Lonely Place by Dorothy B. Hughes. And I'd seen the movie, a couple of times, but the book was even more intense, and it's a pretty intense movie. So that was exciting. And I encountered Chester Himes, who I'd never really heard of before, and Patricia Highsmith, who I'd seen Strangers on a Train and Purple Noon. But that was interesting because our book group had around 10 people. Some months it might be 8, some it might be 12, but it was consistent. For Patricia Highsmith, it was like the crowd we have today. We had to move to a bigger room. People just came out of the woodwork to talk about Ripley. So that was really exciting. Then after a couple of years, we kind of exhausted that group. And interestingly, they didn't proceed quite forward. They jumped to like contemporary stuff, which was interesting, but it left a lot of gaps. And no Elmore Leonard, no Sarah Paretsky, and most egregiously, as I would come to find, no Walter Mosley. I'd seen the movie Devil in a Blue Dress at the theater in 1995, but hadn't read the books until we moved out here in 2018. Some point after that, I started to read the books. There's 16 in the series, and the last one came out last year. I just read it a couple of months ago, so I've read them all now. So, and interestingly, even though I hadn't seen the movie since '95, I hear in the Easy Rollins is the main character. In his narration and dialogue, I kind of, in my head, hear Denzel. And for the Mouse is kind of his, violent friend and kind of sort of alter ego. I hear Don Cheadle, and so it kind of adds to the reading experience. The books are set in L.A. There's, like I said, there are 16 of them. The first one came out in 1990, the last one last year. So I'll explain the trajectory later, but overall, Mosley's written about 2 books per year since 1990, which there have been times in my life where I was doing good to read 2 books a year. So writing 2 books a year is staggering. So the character, Easy Rollins, was born in Louisiana, orphaned at a fairly young age, moves to Houston where he has a grandparent but is basically on his own, serves in World War II, and when he comes back, he leaves to California. Geographically, that's of interest to me because I've always been fascinated with that migration. When I studied history, the prominent thing that people talked about was the north to south, southern rural areas to northern cities, which is massive, very significant. But there's also been a south, in general, south and Midwest, but basically a westward migration, starting even before World War II, but really kicking into high gear during and afterwards. My favorite rock and roll song actually is Chuck Berry's "The Promised Land," which in 2 minutes is basically a historical novel of a guy moving from Virginia to California, and it's got like freedom rider undercurrents and all kinds of interest in those propulsing 2 minutes. And we are, of course, belatedly part of that migration coming from Texas. It's slowed down, of course, and now is a two-way street. But I did happen to hear on NPR or something around the time we moved out here that the year before, so 2017, 6 million people left California, but 5 million people moved to California. So there are still people coming. We're not, people would greet us like we're the only people going from Texas to California, but there are others. And of course, the migrations are now in all directions, southward, northward, eastward, as well as westward. The first Rollins book, The Devil in a Blue Dress, is set in 1948. The one that came out last year is set in 1970. So that's basically the period that he's covering. So there are a lot of differences in the area. Like you'll hear about, and he'll address it in the books, like this used to be just a field or just an orange grove, or, and so, different things like that. There are also some consistencies. In one book I noticed he basically says that you're in LA because 3 people taking a relatively short trip from point A to point B drive 3 different cars. So, so basically not everything has changed. He also takes the characters kind of out of the city. He'll go up to Santa Barbara, down to San Diego. So he comes out this way. There's one subplot in one of the books that's in Pomona, another in Riverside. He's mentioned Claremont once or twice in passing. Some of the mountainous areas, which I assume he means like the Big Bear area. All the books are in chronological order, except for a coming-of-age book where he kind of takes E.Z. Rollins back in time, which is really interesting because when he grew up, he's already 18, 19, and he couldn't read. And by the time we're in the series, he's a voracious reader. So it's fascinating to see the changes in his life. And mostly had actually written that book first, but it wasn't a detective story, and he was not known at the time, so he didn't get interest from publishers. But after several books in the Rollins series had come out, he kind of reworked it, and I think it's like the 6th. It's somewhere along. So it's the only one that's out of order chronologically. Everything else follows the pattern. All the books are novels except for one called 6 Easy Pieces. That's a book of 6 short stories, which are all completely distinct cases, but they take place chronologically. So the personal storyline is woven throughout the books. So it's woven throughout the story. So it's a pretty interesting way to go, I think. All except for the coming-of-age book and the short stories have a color in the title. Some are primaries. The first 2 are blue and red, the first 2 books, but later on he goes to more spectral obscurities like scarlet or amethystine, and so that's the latest one, Farewell Amethystine. There's a lot of social commentary in these books, kind of presented casually or in context. It's not kind of forced in the stories, but it's there in a way you don't see in the classic books. That's more subtext, whereas in Mosley it's out front. And one thing I learned while preparing for this is that Mosley is not just African American, but also Jewish. So and his side characters, the early books, he's basically in the black community, and most of the people you see are African American. But increasingly, he's moving to different places around LA and meeting different people while doing cases. So among the people we see, they're right after the Watts riots, which one of the books is focused on, the first thing he does is to go look out for this shopkeeper who was a Holocaust survivor. And later on, he has a partner who is Jewish, who's married to an African American, which is like Mosley's parents with the genders reversed. The Watts, going back to the Watts story, that's my favorite of the series. It's called Little Scarlet. Takes place right after the Watts riots. It's, to me, the most political of the books. It's, I mean, like I said, they're all political, but this is the most potent. Ironically, it's also the book where he becomes part of the system. I mean, this is, you know, mid-60s, and so for almost 20 years, he's basically been an unlicensed private investigator. So he's kind of on the fringes. But after the riots, the LAPD can't go into the black community with impunity the way they're used to, so they get Rollins to work on a case that they're having trouble with. And at the end, as a reward, they actually give him a license, an official license, which really sets up interesting consequences in later books because he's always getting pulled over or harassed in some other way. So now he can not only produce the credentials, but also, you know, credibly drop the names of high LAPD brass. And so it really bewilders the policemen who are not used to that. On the personal side, there are a couple of books before Little Scarlet. There's a book called A Little Yellow Dog, which introduces the character of Bonnie Shea, who's an African stewardess she works for Air France and commutes between Paris and LA. And they have a long-term relationship. So that's a several volume arc where they kind of get to know each other, they live together, there's domestic tranquility and then eventual discord. He's also picked up 2 adopted children along the way from, you know, basically people who were, you know, kind of victims of the cases that he was working on that had nowhere else to go, so he took them in. So he's raising 2 children throughout this series. There's a lot of dichotomies in Rollins. He's traditional in a lot of ways, but he's open to new things. When the hippie culture starts to happen, at first he's a little bewildered, but then he embraces it. And in fact says, if I'd been born 20 years later, I would have been a hippie. And apparently Mosley himself was actually a hippie for a short time. So in many ways, a traditional man's man, but he respects and admires interesting and independent women. He can be secretive and jealous in his personal relationships, but he generally learns as he goes along. Like we see a more mature guy as the series goes on. He's physically strong and doesn't shy from violence, but generally uses his intellect, not just through smarts, but also an ability to read people. In the 90s, there was a Rollins book coming out once a year, basically, just about. In the aughts, it was a little slower pace. Mosley remained prolific, but just started to pursue other avenues, none of which I've read, so I can't comment on anything outside of the Rollins series. In the 2007 book, Blonde Faith, the story ends with a severe car crash on the Pacific Coast Highway. Apparently in part because Mosley wasn't sure if he wanted to continue the character or not. But a lot like the classic rock bands doing their farewell tours, he wound up, 6 years later, there's another Rollins mystery out. The ones after are kind of interesting. In a way, that they can read like greatest hits, like so many, of the supporting characters we've seen make an appearance. It's like, oh yeah, here's so and so again, or but also in kind of structure, they're more interesting. There's always been a personal and a professional, kind of woven together. But in these books, there's usually multiple plot lines in both. So you're really, following like intricate patterns in these later books. He's also addressing aging issues. At the time of the last year's book, Rollins is 50 years old, but given the nature of his work, he's starting to feel like, it's a younger person's game, so He's starting to feel his age a little bit. Part of the reason I like Mosley is he really does everything well. There's a casual feel to the book, but there's a lot of enriching detail. The setting is important. From the Chester Himes books I read, Harlem isn't just the setting, it's almost like the main character. It's not quite that strong, which is very interesting with Himes, because he apparently didn't spend much time in Harlem and lived most of his life as an expatriate in either France or Spain. He found the market in the detective stories in Harlem. Rollins also, he was raised in LA, so he knew the area, but he settled on the East Coast as a young man and has lived in New York, but continues to write about LA. It's hard to imagine these books being transported. Truffaut took David Goodis's Philadelphia story, became the movie Shoot the Piano Player, from Philadelphia to Paris. Luchino Visconti made a bootleg adaptation of James M. Cain's Postman Always Rings Twice, actually before the Lana Turner movie, called Ossessioni. It's not only set in Italy, it was filmed during World War II. And so those changes actually, I think, add to those stories. But it's hard to imagine the Rollins stories not in LA. It seems very place dependent. Kind of like Chandler. I mean, Chandler is very LA, but Mosley's is even more vivid, which to me is a pretty high compliment. The plots are compelling, but his greatest gift, I think, is characterization. There's no minor character who is just rote. The recurring ones have arcs of their own. They develop along the way, just like the main characters do. So nothing's just thrown in. And he balances that with, basically, let's say you're starting on book 7. You'll get a little backstory, so you know who he's talking about, but he kind of keeps that going with the development in the character. I think this really helps the novels. A lot of am I going too long? Okay. Okay, I'll wrap it up fast. Yeah, a lot of the storylines can be kind of bleak and disturbing elements, but the characterization, the fact that you're buying into the characters and their lives makes it easier, more humanistic. Okay, so the topic, books that have influenced our lives. Until recent years, I started a lot of books without finishing them. Sometimes I went back, like in Red Harvest, and was glad. Others continued to be unfinished. There are lots of reasons for that, but most often I just didn't connect with the author's style. So when I find somebody I like to read, Jane Austen, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Charles Portis, James Baldwin, I read a lot of their stuff. So Mosley's kind of the latest addition to that list. So I think I get the area edition that he provides, I get social significance, which is welcome, but I think the main reason his books are influential to me is because they're very fun for me to read, which is, not to be underestimated, I think. So back to our San Antonio Noir book, for me, the answer to the Chandler versus McDonald debate is the best is Walter Mosley. Forget Chandler, definitive answer is Mosley. Okay, another reason I like Mosley is because it turns out this is his second career. He started as a computer programmer and basically went to a city college in Harlem while he was working in New York City and studied writing. And one of his professors, he was encouraged by a lot of professors, one of them the Irish novelist Edna O'Brien. So he got a lot of encouragement along the way. I myself am preparing a book about popular culture. For those of you who talked to me after church about movies and music, it's very similar, just as conversational but more comprehensive. So I'm hoping that, I'm trying to get that out this year, so I'll let you all know when that happens. Now I'd like to introduce my valued book group colleague, Lynn DeJonghe. I think all of us in the book group are consistently impressed with her breadth and depth of literary knowledge, and in other subjects also. Since I've known her, she's written 2 books. So basically, she's in a poetry writing group with our Reverend Ellen. So her accomplishments of the last 5 years that I've known her are extraordinary. So before that, I'm sure I'd be here another hour. So everybody, please welcome my friend, Lynn DeJonghe. Thank you.
I have glaucoma and I'm blind in one eye, which means I have no depth perception, which makes navigation very interesting. So I understand that it's late, and so if you have to leave, I will certainly understand. And I will try to be succinct, but give the information. Could we have the first slide, please? Thank you. Oh, first slide. I believe, thank you. That's perfect. The book that I want to share with you was published in March of this year, and I hope it will be as meaningful to you as it has been to me. It is called Is a River Alive? And it's by the English naturalist Robert Macfarlane. And Elizabeth Colbert has said, like its subject, this is a work of flow and counterflow. It is lyrical, evocative, closely observed, and deeply moving. Macfarlane offers new ways to think, and just as importantly, new ways to feel about the majestic and mysterious non-human world. Slide, please. No man ever steps into the same river twice, because it is not the same river and he is not the same man. You probably recognize that, a quote from the Greek philosopher Heraclitus. And like this book, like the river of Heraclitus, deepens, affirms, changes, revives, and renews. Slide, please. Robert Macfarlane put the same idea this way. I came to see that we are never dry-footed on the bank. We're never standing there watching the current move past us. And what that understanding does is both induce a contentment with change, but also a prestination of the given moment, because it will be upstream of you within seconds. And that resonates with the songs we have sung and the poetry of Tagore today. Macfarlane is a fellow of Emmanuel College at Cambridge University, and in the book we learn that he lives near the springs that feed the River Cam. He begins and he ends this book with a local life crisis. He writes, up at Nine Wells Wood, the Chalkland Spring, thank you. The Chalkland Spring near my home that feeds the River Cam, the springs are almost dry, the flow a stagnant puddle. UK's unique chalk stream ecology is in crisis. And those are the pictures of the drying up wells. Slide, please. Macfarlane tells his story by choosing 3 river systems, one vibrantly alive, one doomed, and one fighting for its life. It's interwoven by the story of the springs at Nine Wells. And each story has heroes working to keep the river alive. And I'll let you discover many of those heroes by yourself, but I'll share just one of each, from each with you. It took him 5 years to write this book. Slide, please. The first river is the Rio de los Cedros, a river vibrantly alive. It is in Ecuador. Slide, please. I got it. Thank you. Los Cedros cloud forest
feeds the river. The condensing clouds of the forest not only feed the river, but also countless other forms of life. Slide, please. In Ecuador's Los Cedros forest, monkeys squeal, squirrels scuffle, and 400 species of birds flit and squawk. A mist hangs in the trees, and ferns and mosses in countless shades of green cover every rock and tree trunk. And if you think it's quiet in that forest, it is not. Slide, please. The hero of this story, one of the heroes, is Joseph Leduc, who moved to Los Cedros Reserve in northern Ecuador from the United States in the 1980s. And with the help of friends and nonprofits, Decoux bought land in the Los Cedros forest to begin his conservation project. And just as an aside, one of the fascinating little side trips of this is, you may know, the forest of the cedars is the forest in Lebanon or in Babylonia that Gilgamesh cut down. And so the author takes Decoux a copy of the new translation of Gilgamesh. So it's woven in there. Excuse me. Slide, please. Sorry, I seem to have a, okay. Jose was diagnosed with cancer just as he was beginning to embarking on the massive legal battle to save Los Cedros from transnational mining interests. And in between bouts of treatment for his cancer, he coordinated the construction of the legal case, excuse me, which was won at the Constitutional Court of Ecuador in 2021. This historic ruling upheld the rights of nature for the reserve and all of its species, including the river itself. And this picture was caught by a camera, a mounted camera of Decoux. It's a rare Andean speckled bear who he was dancing on the trail at Los Cedros. The second river system is a doomed system. It's a system of 3 rivers that feed the city of Chennai in India. And its hero has written, cities grow along riversides, then slowly forget their ecological watery genesis. Later, they slowly collapse under their own weight, unless there is a reinvocation of what birthed the city in the first place, the river. And our hero for this one is a man named Ewan Aves. Slide, please. Thank you. At 16, Ewan left an abusive home and took charge of his own education. He took himself to Krishnamurti's Pathisala school. You probably know of Krishnamurti. His innate curiosity was allowed to flourish there. Today, he coordinates the Farm, Environment, and Society program at Abacus Montessori School in Chennai. And his earth-centric integrated curricula inform alternative educational programs across India. He leads the volunteer services to save the rivers of Chennai. Slide, please. To restore the wetland ecosystem, his volunteers planted 143,818 saplings of different mangrove species along the river. Slide, please. And this is a rehabilitated eco park around the Adyar Creek in Chennai today. The rest of the river is still pretty awful. It isn't all nicey-picey. Slide, please. The third river is fighting to stay alive. the river, it's called Magpie River in Quebec, but the natives call it Matahekau. And its hero is Rita, poet and activist, Rita Matakosho, who has written, "We all have a river who calls to us. My people wrote millions of books scattered upon the land, encyclopedias of rivers, dictionaries of mountains, geographies of forest." The author and his colleagues made a harrowing 3-week kayak trip down the river. And this is an adventure story, believe me. And here is Matakosho, activist poet, drumming life to support the Matapehu Shipu. Shipu, by the way, means river. Matakehu means magpie. And McFarlane writes, "Anger burns quietly in some of her poems. A deep sadness pervades others. Beauty hovers over all." And she was instrumental in getting the tribal council to endorse the rights of the Matakehu River. And here are their rights: to live, to exist, and to flow, to respect its natural cycles, to evolve naturally, to maintain its natural biodiversity, to maintain its integrity, to perform essential functions within its ecosystem, to be free from pollution, and to take legal action. And I also recommend that you check out the Universal Declaration of the Rights of Rivers. You can visit the website rightsofrivers.org and sign the declaration. Slide, please. I wanted to back up and say that Rita had told the author when he embarked on his kayak trip that he would find a question that would be meaningful to him. And at the end of his trip, he finds the question, and he writes, "The question of life, which is not a question at all, but a work. Find the current, follow the flow. It may involve a great reach outward of mind and imagination, and the river's voices say and sing what I cannot comprehend. And each time I lean my mind out to listen, they retreat, beckoned on and shivered by that hourglass-shaped and slivered force that is a mouth and has a tongue and utters. I find tears in my eyes that I did not put there, but the river did. And I start to scrawl the pages you are reading now." This book is philosophy, poetry, call to action, an invitation to adventure. I hope it will affect you as deeply as it has me. Thank you. Now I'll hobble away. Maybe I'll come back and get this later. How's that? So you can get on.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. I won't. I'll try not to.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody here, for your patience. It was worth it, right? And in a lot of chaos of the early morning. And a big thank you to Megan for going and getting my papers that were like my security, I guess. Going to my house, nothing like the board president goes to your house with your keys and gets your papers and comes back. There's a lot going on the patio today and in the congregation. I think we're starting a class today, right? It's a building your own, not a building, it's a sort of a new of Building my personal faith is starting. Where are you holding that? In the Founders Room. And there's also a justice team. Yes? That's right. Yeah. There's justice team letter writing also today. So we've got more wonderful things. So let's sing our closing song, and then if you want to come after and extinguish the chalice, and we'll say our extinguishing and then our closing words. So it's a blue boat home. I love that. Thank you. That is Peter Mayer singing it, the one who wrote it, and it's his official video. So he wants to carry on about it. It's beautiful. So let's say our chalice extinguishing in unison benediction words together. That should come up. And I want to thank also Joe and Lynn and Ellen for making the service what it was. Okay. As we close our time together and extinguish our chalice flame, may it continue to burn brightly in our hearts, illuminating our path and strengthening our resolve until we meet again. In our closing words, it might be said that more than anything else humanity has created or accomplished, the books that we have written are, in their totality, our greatest legacy, the greatest record of who we are and what it means to be human, our greatest gifts to ourselves. May you have been gifted by the offerings shared today. Go in peace, be makers of peace, and may words continue to inspire your lives. And then we have a postlude. But if you want, feel free to get up, because Lily won't know. And thank you.